Just about a month ago, I did a ranking of the January achievement of the weeks, and then, of course, a month achievements for the event going on over at Retro Achievements. And now we're in February. Well, we're in March, but we have finished February, and I want to talk about them. I do want to point out before I start, this is grayed out because technically I have not gotten it. I got most of it. I haven't gotten the actual achievement to then report that I did and use whatever currency they call it. I think it's called Flickies to then get it unlocked. I had a lot of family stuff going on. It happens, and that's why you have a little bit of a safety net, so to say. As long as you do all the monthly stuff, you get a Flicky per month, which I don't think I described before. So if you, for example, I'm going to end up using two, uh, because I unlocked it, I really only use one. Just to clarify and make sure everybody understands. It's not really a big deal, but I do want to point out for right now it's grayed out, and in the next week or so I'll probably end up getting it. Or, but by the time you see the next one for March, which is in about a month, it'll be colored in. But I wanted to be perfectly honest, and let's get into it. I don't want to spend too much time because we have not quite a few, but we have a few achievements that I want to talk about because they're actually very interesting. We, of course, have the very first one that started February off, which I think was pretty disappointing to me personally. It, if you were an Earthbound fan, at first glance, you're like, oh, this is a great looking thing, right? It's an Earthbound. It's a hack of Earthbound. And it's not very fun. It's supposed to be puzzle oriented, and the puzzles don't really make much sense. You need a guide to go through to enjoy it. It's very, very lackluster. I think the badge looks really good for all of them. Someone put in work for that, but the hack itself is pretty shitty. It's Quest of Hat for the hack. Definitely the worst one we have encountered the entire event. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This was definitely one of the worst things to go through. It was boring, and even when it was funny or it was fun, it wasn't, because it was just a short hack that took too damn long to get to where you wanted. It was bad and also glitchy. Really not a good combo. But ignoring that, we then went into what I think was actually a really good achievement for a lot of people that haven't played it. This is a Killer 7 achievement. If you haven't played Killer 7, it's actually a very interesting game itself. And this one wasn't too far into the game itself. I think this is the first proper boss in the game, is what it's. This is killing the angel, I'm pretty sure, on any difficulty, which it's not too hard to get through in about an hour and a half if you don't know the game. And if you're like me and have played it before, it took like an hour. I even did some damageless stuff while I was there because I do intend on playing more of it on Retro Achievements down the line, which is always a nice thing to see for Achievement of the Week. But I do think it was probably one of the better games. It's definitely up here with the Bees for sure. The only reason I kind of put it lower is because the achievement itself is very generic, and like there's it didn't really introduce me to any games. This is going to be a lot of bias here, but where these are, like, they introduced me to some games that I necessarily didn't play or I wasn't willing to play, and then I found out I really liked them, then in this case I happen to think it was a worthy time. This one I already knew about Killer 7. I've played it before, and so it kind of sits in B, which I'm going to be honest, I kind of regret having this here, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Next one was actually a very interesting one. It was beat the game as Donald Duck in Magical Quest 3 starring Mickey and Donald, which is interesting. I liked the game at first. I'll be honest, I thought it was a little bad to start. I do think it has a rough start, and I do think it has a really bad last level. I think the last level is pretty miserable, but overall, I didn't really mind the experience. It just happens to be that because it's so bad for the first level and then bad for the last, I have to put it here. It's not that great of an experience, Like for a platformer, it does okay. It has some really cool mechanics, which almost makes me want to play it higher. But it just, I didn't really felt like fulfilled by playing it. I didn't really feel like I was doing a lot. Uh, it just, it wasn't the greatest. Is where I'm sitting at with it. I do want to stand by that it is a decent game. It's probably of the C's and D's. It's probably the best game by a long shot, and the achievement itself is probably only slightly worse than Mission 5, and that's because of the length of the final mission for this game. And I don't know. I do think maybe if it had been Mickey, it would have been more interesting. Apparently, I played a little bit of it, and someone has told me that Mickey plays a lot better, which, is something to kind of be probably more towards like success or anything. But ignoring that, we then get into the final weekly achievement of February, which finished in March 2nd. But I did the same thing for, I think this was the end of the month. So this was Hexen, which if you haven't played Hexen, is actually a really good first person shooter around the N64 era. And I'm going to be honest, it was actually a really good achievement to pick out. So the thing with like Hexen specifically is that it's a confusing mess. Like if you haven't played it, it's very confusing. But the last time I played it was probably before 2010 when I was a kid, or barely a teen maybe. And I didn't remember much. So I went through without a guide, and yes, it took me a little longer than it probably should because I'm dumb. But I actually think Hexen is a very good achievement, or a very good game for this because it's kind of secretive. Yeah, you can look through a guide if you're just going to have fun, but if you're fully exploring, I do think Hexen's one of the better games for this. It's very easy. It's not too difficult. The achievement set itself is really, really nice. And at the end of the day, I do think it's really, 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 really. I've been saying that a lot, but it's actually like just good for this. It's probably the first A achievement that I'll be giving, and based on what's been going on in March, probably for a little bit longer. But overall, I do think it as a game it does fit. I do want to state it's not that much better than those in B, and realistically, I probably should put it in B. But I feel like Hexen deserves a little bit of credit as being, a very good game. And it's also one of those things where I had a lot more fun just kind of loading up Achievement of the Week and playing Hexen. Whereas, like, I had fun with all of these, or it was short enough and I could just kind of bullshit my way through it. This is the one I truly had fun with, just loading up. I wasn't talking to anybody, I just played the game. And I think that's a really good thing of Achievement of the Week when it works out. But now we get into the Achievement of the Month, which is Grayed Out. And the reason it's grayed out is because it was Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Quest, and I legit didn't have enough time. This was defeat Captain K. Rool in the Lost World, which is basically the secret ending of the game. It requires you to either A, collect all the coins for a specific, like, I think it's 75 of the coins, or you put in a code, well, you figure out the code thing to activate a little cheat, and you get enough coins to be able to do it. But overall, it's not too bad of an experience. The legit only reason I have not done it is because I didn't have time. Been dealing with a lot of family stuff, but it is a good game. I don't really. One of the biggest problems is that if it was almost just beating the game normally, I probably would be happier with it. And I don't really like this because it either relies on your knowledge of the game to get enough coins to then succeed, or knowing the code and knowing how to do it, or at least looking it up and then bypassing it very haphazardly and you're just beating the game anyway. So in both directions, I don't really like the achievement design for Achievement of the Week. I don't think it's that great of an experience. And for Achievement of the Month, it was pretty poorly thought out. I do think there was a lot better options in the set. Collecting enough coins to do it would have just been a decent achievement. But Even if you go to the actual set itself, which I am gonna do right now, there's a lot of achievements that would have worked really, really good. But I keep saying really, really, don't I? But there's some like really cool stuff like finish hothead hop while collecting one banana or less without using the checkpoint barrel or the warp barrel, because that is a little bit into the game. But you can go even farther with some of the challenges. I would have even argued that uh, beating the game in less than 1 hour and 20 minutes in game time might be a terrible like achievement of the month at first glance, but because you have a whole month to kind of get good at the game, I do think it would have been a decent time. Uh, and then there's some really cool ones that I think would have been better for achievement of the month. But I also think that this game doesn't really lend itself well to this. It's okay, but at the same time, it's not fantastic for this type of event. I just happen to think that this achievement specifically just didn't work well, which is okay. It was still in C. It's probably almost in B. I could definitely see the argument for B, but I want to hate on it because I don't have it right now. But I'll get it eventually. But yeah, overall it was a decent month. As you can see, we had two C's, one D, one B, and one A, which is actually worse than January now that I look at it. Uh, or it's about the same average, right? No, this D ruins it because you have equal C's, one better. It about equals it out. I think it's a little lower by a percentage. I don't know how you would rank this. I would probably have to look at it, but overall, it was a decent month. If you still want to check in on the achievement of the week and month, you could still manage to get almost every single one using flickies. I think you would end up missing two if you were to collect every single one on time. But uh, yeah, you could still at least check it out. And there's still a lot of badges that are available. The snake one, yeah, you can go for the snake one like I'm doing, or you could just go for uh, the what's it called, the Arbok one, or even just a little bit lower. There's nothing wrong with going for bronze. A lot of people have bronze already, and you only need 64 points to get, of course, the top one, which you have to do everything. But at the same time, Arbok is only 48 points, I think, which is much more reasonable. And I do think the badge actually looks better for the Arbok, sadly. But yeah, overall, it's a fun experience. It's a fun event to be going through right now. I do recommend it. But that's it for the February. This is my ranking. We will be saving this so we can do March in the future. And I don't know about March. March has been started off pretty rough, but we'll get to it when we get to it. I'll see you guys later.